For 4 days in October, galleries, museums, and artists threw open the doors to welcome the world to the Seattle glass scene. In this edition of Glass Quarterly Live, we take a closer look at the phenomenon that is refract. To help us understand it, we're joined by Michelle Bufano of Chihuly Garden and Glass. From the Brooklyn, New York studios of Urban Glass, this is Glass Quarterly Live, a video podcast where we take a deep dive into the artists, curators, and writers from the pages of the most recent edition. Stay with us for conversation, discussion, and discovery that brings you inside the news, features, and reviews of Glass Magazine. I'm your host, Andrew Page, the editor of Glass Magazine. And as a special holiday bonus, we're also going to talk about last-minute gift ideas for the holidays. And directors of major documentaries about glass are stopping by to tell us about the films that they've just released for streaming. Plus, we have our very own offer we'll tell you about as well. So stay with us for this, the 5th edition of Glass Quarterly Live. Welcome to Glass Quarterly Live, where we take a deep dive into the articles in the latest edition of Glass Magazine. Today, we're excited to take a closer look at Refract, the Seattle Glass Experience, which is the subject of a feature article in the winter 2025 edition of Glass Magazine. And I'm here with our very own Ellie Sevier, who is the Seattle correspondent for Glass Magazine and who wrote about this 4-day festival. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Ellie and I are going to talk about her article in depth later in the program, but now we're very pleased to be joined by one of the founders of the Refract Festival, Michelle Bufano, the executive director of Chihuly Garden and Glass. Welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Andrew. And Ellie, it's great to see you again.
Thanks again, Michelle. So, Michelle, before you started at Chihuly Garden and Glass, you also had been served at Pratt Art Center, Fine Arts Center in Seattle, as well as you did some years at the Museum of Glass in Tacoma. And in addition, until very recently, you were a curator as well at Gallery Mac, which is a downtown Seattle gallery that very recently was sold. So we're really looking forward, Michelle, to the multiple perspectives you could bring to this question, which, as we point out in the article itself, goes beyond the question of simply what is refract, but the future of glass itself, as Ellie explores, as she made an effort to attend every single day of the 4-day festival at Refract. And she'll talk about how difficult that was because Refract has simply gotten so large. And in fact, she says in 4 hectic days, one reporter tries to capture the essence of a sprawling Refract 2025, which just might be a glimpse of the future of glass art. Well, thank you so much for being here, Michelle. And Ellie and I have a few questions for you. And I guess, first of all, we might want to start at the very beginning and just find out a little bit about how Refract became reality, because I know it grew, as Ellie points out in her article, out of a study done in 2015 that looked at the state of glass after the 2012 50th anniversary of Studio Glass. So maybe you can bring us back to that point of the very origin story of how Refract came to be.
I would love to. Well, it really starts, it was a gradual process. Definitely the vision for Refract happened over time. And it really started in 2012 when we opened Chihuly Garden and Glass. One thing that we realized in the first year was that people were coming who were, of course, glass aficionados to see the new Chihuly Garden and Glass. But eventually we started seeing the general public, people who maybe had never seen glass before in their lives. And it was eye-opening for us and also very exciting. For the first time, we started thinking about this responsibility that we had to not only talk about Dale Chihuly, but to talk about the rich arts and culture in our own city and to really expand people's idea and love and interest of this new medium glass. So that's kind of where it started. So it really started with more of a question as, wait, should we start to tell people about this glass bubble that we live in Seattle, Washington? And that's when we decided to ask the Glass Art Society if they would partner with us to start this survey, The Landscape of Glass in America in 2015. Remember, the survey came out in 2015, but Refract didn't really start in 2000 until 2019. So there are almost 3 or 4 years in there where we were planning this idea of Refract.
Was it something that was a collaboration with Visit Seattle, which is the tourist group that promotes visitation and tourism? Or were they brought on later? You mentioned the Glass Art Society was an early partner with you, and you guys reached out for Chihuly Garden and Glass and got an enthusiastic response from the Glass Art Society. Did you find Visit Seattle there from the beginning, or were they brought on later once you had a clear idea of what you were planning to do and could prove that there was enough there to bring people to Seattle?
Yeah, the study itself really was, for us, number one, it really talked about the trends that were happening in 2015, what was happening in the glass community. But more than that, really where were the hot spots? And once we had the data, we felt comfortable starting with, as you would imagine, our glass community. So we reached out to the glass community first. We had a series of meetings and 2-hour brainstorms where we sat in a room and said, we think we want to do this thing. What do you all think? So we brought together Pratt and Pilchuck and Traver and the Museum of Glass and the Tacoma Art Museum and many artists from our area and said, this is what we're thinking. Let's talk about it. And then once we felt really confident, we had gone around the country and really talked about the study. Visit Seattle was excited as we were to really own this idea of Seattle as the hub of glass in America. And so they jumped on board with us as well. Just before, it was probably about a year before we started to launch.
Okay, so that's great. Were there any challenges or moments where this great idea might not have taken place, or were there any things to overcome or to prove to somebody that glass is not only a local culture, but could be the vehicle to bring more people and bring more attention? Were there any naysayers? Were there people you had to convince in the process?
So when we first started the discussions with our community of glass, our glass community, one thing that was evident from the beginning was that people really thought that this might be another gas conference or another festival for the glass artists to learn more from other glass artists or to learn more about what was happening in the field. And Refract was really started not for that reason. It was started to showcase the rich arts and culture of our city and to showcase the artists. But it was really designed for the general public. And so that conversation with our glass community still happens today. I would say that is the one area that is hard for people to understand, that this isn't just about the glass community. I mean, it's all about the glass community, but in a very different way than a gas conference. So when we launched in 2019, it was very successful the first year. There was so much enthusiasm around this because think about the time. It was that time when people were saying, glass collectors were starting to age. Was there going to be a future of glass? And this community rallied around this idea. So we came out really strong in 2019. And then I think we all know that a major obstacle was 2020. When we think about COVID in 2020, very early in May, the Glass Art Society decided to do their conference online. It was supposed to be in Sweden, if you remember. And it was such a bold move for the glass community. People were thrilled that they moved it online. People weren't doing things like this online then. And so after they did that, we decided that Refract must persevere. And we decided to do as much as we could in 2020 to make sure we had this great momentum going, to make sure that we didn't lose our audience.
And that was a virtual Refract in 2020?
It was a little of both. So by the time October came around, people were getting used to these outside events and trying to do more, getting out into the community. And so it was about, we did a lot in person, actually, and we did a lot online. Artists were doing their demonstrations online, which was interesting. Some people had the technology down and some people really didn't. But we're so happy that we were able to do it. So you do see our numbers drop a little when you get to 2020. But then we knew we had to just pick right back up in 2021 and get back to it.
Great. Well, I know that each Refract kicks off at Chihuly Gardens and Glass, Chihuly Garden and Glass. And I wanted to, maybe we can take a look at some of the opening pictures, which would be great to see them as, from your viewpoint. We started the article, in fact, with a picture of the conservatory at night, which just lights up beautifully. I think Ellie called it like a jewel box in the night. And, we have a couple shots here that are very generously shared by photographer Tony Teske through Visit Seattle, who took some great documentation of the opening party in 2025. And I wondered if you could, as we look through a couple of these images, Michelle, stop me when you think there's something you might want to comment on the planning or the way that people are interacting with the space as we go through a couple of these great shots from the inside of the conservatory. And we also have some shots outside as well.
Well, I can just start by saying this was early in the evening, so people were eating. And so the glass house, if you remember, was really full, Ellie. But as the night carried on, people ended up outside, of course, in front of the demonstrations, because I think that's what you would expect with this crowd. One of the things is about this event is that we thought it was important because remember the goal of Refract is really to bring a public that maybe doesn't know about glass. And so we thought it was important to have an opening kickoff event that would be sort of a grounding for people, a place where they could go and Visit Seattle has their table set up and they could talk to people about plan my weekend. And they could really start to understand not just about glass, but also about our city and managing our city. So that was the original intent of this event. And I think there were probably about 125 people who wore the glass community who came to this event, people who were participating in the Refract weekend. But the rest of the people there were either new to Seattle or new to glass, which was what makes it so interesting for an opening night event. It's not your typical glass party that you would go to.
I know Ellie might have had a question here because this came up in her article as well.
Yeah. Well, you already kind of answered some of it about, who is showing up to this event. So I would ask further, how are you, when you're designing this event, what are you looking at in terms of the elements, of the event and who you're designing those for? Who are you marketing this event for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the last year and the year before, we saw a large number of people from outside of Washington State. And then even in 2024, 3 or 4 different countries where people actually came just for Refract. And so that's part of Visit Seattle's mission, is to really market beyond our city, market beyond our region and nationally and internationally. So that's really who we're targeting. We're also targeting people who have this newfound interest in this magical medium, but don't really know that much about it. And so it's very important for us to have the demonstrations, both flame working and glass blowing, so that people could actually start to see this is what it's all about. I think we invited Hilltop glass artists to come and do the demonstrations, which is also just kind of a part of our partnership aspect of this whole program. I think so that's really important as well, that people from outside of our community get to see what a real community we are. And so it is important to have that mix of glass community members and then people from around the world. I think people got really excited and got dressed up. I think you saw that. We didn't expect that. I mean, we didn't expect that it would be that kind of an event. And it really has turned out to be just a very great way to start off the entire 4 days and kind of set the stage for what they're about to see.
One of the things Ellie picked up in her article was that Blown Away was a big driver of some of that interest from non-specialists or even not in the area, but like the impact of that Netflix series could be measured in the actual number of people who came, for example, to the opening night event. Did you guys notice a drop off because that show has not been continued this year?
This in 2025, I will say Visit Seattle took a different approach to marketing, and they marketed more around Washington State, Oregon, Pacific Northwest, and not as much internationally because there was early in January a very large drop in Canadian visitors as well as international visitors to our city. So we didn't want Refract to suffer from that. So we took a different approach, which I think was smart. I do think that there's still this enthusiasm for the Blown Away folks that watched it for all the seasons that it was available. And they are still very interested in learning more about glass. You may know that we finished another study. So 10 years later, 2025, we've finished the study. We haven't released it yet, but I can tell you that a little sneak peek, there's still a growing interest from the public in glass. That is very evident from our study. So Yes, Blown Away brought so many people to Seattle in 2024 Refract. I think part of that was so many of the artists were actually from the region who were on the show. But I don't see that. I think the drop that we see with Blown Away not on the air right now can be filled by Visit Seattle's approach to marketing and this newfound excitement about what's happening in glass.
So there's some really interesting insights, and that's, as especially as a glass artist myself, it's always encouraging to know that people out there are still interested. Great. Well, thank you so much. So I think, and again, speaking from my perspective, again, as a member of the community, I think the big question on most people's minds is that, what does the future hold for us, in glass and for glass as a medium? And as I kind of hinted at in the article, I think Refract might be able to point us in the direction of the answer of that question. Refract is expanding every year to include more and more artists, more studios, more institutions. So it's really growing, which is, a positive sign. And it seems like this festival has become a collective effort to rally around the material and bring people in, as we've been talking about. How do you see Refract evolving at a time when the number of longtime collectors and philanthropists is getting smaller, perhaps? When some of these big personalities like Dale and Lino have taken a step backwards from the spotlight, maybe moving into retirement. How is Refract evolving, and is there a strategy moving forward?
Yeah, first, I just want to comment on the collectors because that was definitely a part of our study. We reached out to about 30 to 50 stakeholders across the country. What we did a GMA research and had long conversations about the aging collector base. So it is real, and it's something that definitely came up in the study. It came up in 2015 and it came up in 2025. I think you have to remember that, and I think Ellie, I think you wrote about this. I mean, it's been 50 years since studio glass came into our country, and we started talking about it. And we saw a lot of these galleries and collectors and artists. They all kind of grew up together. A lot of the when we talk about the aging collectors, and we talk about galleries that are now retiring after all of these years. They've been on this journey with the artists for all these years. And I think what we're seeing is just a change in the type of collector and a change in the role of what galleries are doing today for the artists. I remember one of the key points in 2015, and this is going to make you laugh, but it was the first time that an artist sold a piece of art online. It was on Facebook, and they were absolutely thrilled that someone would buy a piece of art sight unseen. And today, at least we saw in the study, that has grown substantially. And so that's changing the way galleries are working. I think we need to remember that this is a time of change, and Refract is exactly about that change. We're about bringing in a new audience of collectors, a new audience of passionate people who fall in love with this medium. But it's going to take time. And it might mean that somebody coming from Australia and seeing glass for the first time might not be able to jump in at a $50,000 price point for a piece of art, but they also want the opportunity to fall in love with the medium and grow with it. So it's really this Refract gets this great opportunity to continue to bring people from the public who might have a slight interest and don't know about it, and bring them into our discussion and growth with the glass community.
Andrew, I think you're muted. Hey, Andrew.
Thanks, Ellie. You can only unmute on a specific button here. We're learning as we're doing this, but we also can edit, which is great. So on that point, Michelle, I did want to ask you, one of the really interesting things about Refract is that while it is founded by a large institution like Chihuly Garden and Glass, it is really remarkable in how decentralized it is and how much you allow the individual artists and institutions around you to take the lead in their own programming. And I was just wondering if you might have a comment on that, because one of the things Ellie talked about was it's getting bigger. It's also getting a bit sprawling and almost impossible to really take in entirely.
Yes, we definitely, well, just from the beginning, as I said, this wouldn't have happened without our community. So the number of glass related organizations in the city, the number of artists that live and work in this city in glass, that is really how this came together. There wasn't one single budget that was going to take on this whole festival. There wasn't one single place. This was about everybody. And we really didn't want it to be about Chihuly Garden and Glass. We wanted it to be about our community. And so I think part of that is being open to what kind of programming the different organizations bring forward. This year in 2025, as you know, was a very big year. We expanded with buses to Everett and Tacoma, brought on organizations like the Museum of Flight and the Mini Mart, as you mentioned, Ellie, in your article. These are all organizations that hadn't been involved before. And so was that the right thing to do? First of all, I really appreciate all the great things that you said. But again, this organic growth that happened this year, I think now it's time for us to take a step back, get together with our community again and say, is this the right direction for us to continue to grow as large as we have? One thing that we've said from the beginning is that Refract is about providing something for everyone. So every level, if you are an avid collector, if you are somebody who's been in the glass world forever, you could go to the Pilchuck auction and feel right at home. And if you are somebody who's just learning about glass for the first time, you can go to Seattle Public Glass Blowing Studios and watch people blow glass. So we want to keep the heart of what it is, but we also want to take a look at how we grow over the next few years and really what our audience wants.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. This has been a really, I think, insightful conversation for both of us.
Absolutely. And Michelle, it does sound like you guys are thinking about taking a kind of a more strong curatorial hand going forward and maybe kind of reining something in here, or are you thinking more about, is that right to read what you just said that way?
I think so. What we do at the end of Refract is we get back together very shortly. We'll get back together here with our community and kind of talk about the things that went really well and the things that maybe we'd like to take a look at. One of the areas that we look at when we're measuring success is participation and how much people participated in each of the different activities that we offer. And so we'll do that. We'll get together and look at that and talk about the areas where we do want to grow and the areas where maybe we think we weren't as successful. So that's one of the directions that we'll look at for sure.
Great. Well, yeah, I want to echo Ellie's thanks very much for taking the time to meet with us and to provide the perspective that you bring to this, to Refract and to the Seattle glass art scene. On that last point, I do know you recently sold a Gallery Mac, which was a family-owned gallery downtown Seattle. Did not just show glass, but showed many materials. And it was just, you guys just were able to sell it, I think, in the last couple of weeks. So do you have any insight, not just into the glass field, but how the larger art market is behaving and doing right now? And, whether that brought you any particular perspective that you were going to bring to Refract.
Well, we bought Gallery Mac 6 years ago. And when we bought the gallery, it really only had one significant glass artist in the gallery. It was mostly 2D artwork and other types of mediums and sculptures. So we immediately started bringing in glass artists from Seattle because, of course, that's what we know and love. And we were surprised to find that it was a great opportunity, again, right by Pike Place Market, to bring in people who didn't know much about glass. I will say that one of the things that we noticed right away is, of course, what we talked about earlier, that the price points people weren't buying the higher end glass. They were really looking at the price points that were more reasonable for somebody who was just buying glass for the first time. So less about who was the person selling the glass and more about the piece of glass themselves. So that was interesting for us. And also when I think about this study and I think about 2015, where we talked about how many of the contemporary artists were starting to incorporate glass into their work, I think that opens the door for other galleries to start to include glass in their what they're offering. And so that we were typically a place where people would come to buy a painting to put on their wall. And now they were buying that extra object or piece of art made of glass to go with that painting. So we saw it as an opportunity to really expose the public again to this new medium that was so important in our city. I will say when we sold the gallery, it was very quick. There are many people out there who want to take on that responsibility of showcasing artists' work and really talking about artists, the great artists in the Pacific Northwest. So Gallery Mac is going to continue exactly as it is. And they're bringing in new glass artists and meeting with Hilltop Glass School to really talk about, are there new artists out there that can be the new artists that we grow with and eventually become the artists of our city. So to me, that's super inspiring.
Well, thanks again. Thank you very much, Michelle Bufano, the executive director of Chihuly Garden and Glass and one of the founders of Refract. We really appreciate your knowledge and experience and perspective. And thank you for being on Glass Quarterly Live this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. Thank you so much for
Yes,
having
thank
me.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. To Michelle Bufano, Executive Director of Chihuly Garden and Glass, for joining us. Please stay with us as we discuss the festival further with Ellie Sevier, who wrote this issue's article on Refract, Crystal Ball. The assignment was a very anxiety-producing one for you, Ellie, and we'll find out why in a moment. Thanks so much for staying with us, Ellie.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
So I hope you've recovered from covering Refract for Glass Magazine, which I know you write about very vividly in the article about the challenge of trying to get to so many places so far flung in the 2025 edition in this limited window of 4 days. It sounded really stressful.
Yeah, well, I think it's safe to say I'm back to normal now. But yes, it was definitely a feat because the festival has gotten so large. It covers so much ground now, I think around 100 miles, perhaps. There's events all the way up into Everett, down south in Tacoma, even way out on Bainbridge Island.
So luckily you had access to a car. I guess it would have been a lot harder without one.
Yes, definitely. But I'm not sure if that was always a benefit. Those that are familiar with Seattle know how bad the traffic can get sometimes. And that weekend in particular, there was a lot going on in the city that contributed to that. So there were points where I missed out on demos because I couldn't get there in time or I couldn't find parking downtown. And yeah, all of that definitely made the new busing option that Refract provides sound really appealing. And for those that don't know, Refract has started providing these shuttle buses for a small fee that you can take around various events. They have, different focuses depending on what you're interested in.
Yeah, Michelle mentioned that this was the first time they had buses to Tacoma and to Everett.
Mm-hmm.
That was really great that they instituted that. But I wanted to ask you, you write that this wasn't the very first time you were at Refract, that you were actually there for the very first one in 2019, and that you noted how much this one was different. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah. So that is true. When Refract started in 2019, I was in my last year of high school. I was Brick Johnson's demo at Seattle Glass Blowing Studio, which, is pictured here. And sort of by chance, I ended up lending a hand on the floor during the demo, which was a lot of fun. Karen is great to work with. And it was my first time, doing something like that. And at the time, that was also the largest concentration of glass artists that I think I had seen in one place. So it was really impressionable, both in the hot shop, but also in the audience. Most of the crowd, from what I remember, were other community members. So it felt really intimate and almost like a party or a family reunion. Yeah, and contrasting that now with this year 2025, especially at the opening night event at Chihuly Garden and Glass. Also, as I made my way around the city, I noticed a lot more new faces. I didn't see a lot of other glass artists. And, perhaps that is because they were also opening their doors and, welcoming people into their spaces or not. But I definitely noticed a lot more people that I wasn't familiar with that seemed to be members of the general public. I would say at that opening night event, I only knew about maybe 25% of people, which I think is, really encouraging, knowing that new people are coming into the event and into these spaces.
That's a really great observation, that perhaps one reason there's less concentration of glass artists is that they're all in different places hosting their own stops on the Refract tour. That's a really interesting perspective on things. We're looking here back at the Chihuly Garden and Glass event, the Gather kickoff party, where we see people actually from your former school at Hilltop Artists, where they are demoing for the crowd. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about who that crowd was and what your sense of their knowledge of glass was, being able to watch them at the demo.
Yeah. So again, I would say I only knew perhaps about 25% of the crowd, which I think was notable. And that means that there's a lot of people. And again, I don't know everyone in Seattle, but I think it is notable to say that a large amount of the people present were perhaps new to glass or interested in glass, but had not really been involved previously in these types of events, or, were maybe fans of the material being brought in by, interest in things like Blown Away. Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting. Actually, a friend and a fellow glass artist that I saw at Gather, while we were chatting, he pointed out that the previous year, there had been fewer people watching the demos, and this year there were a lot more people enjoying the demos, which he thought kind of indicated a change in the crowd, that, there were more people that were less familiar with glass actually attending the event this year versus in the past, where he felt like there were more actual artists there. And, when there are other glass artists, they tend to just kind of stick to themselves and chat among themselves versus, people that are less familiar with glass being really captivated by these live demos. So I thought that was an interesting insight.
Interesting. Did you get any idea about the attendance, how this year might have compared, and how whether it met expectations of the organizers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had a lot of trouble getting hard numbers on the year's attendance overall, across the whole weekend. I know that there were about 420 people at the opening night event, which is 60 less than last year, which is likely due to a drop in international tourism. And as we chatted with Michelle earlier about, they definitely changed how they were marketing this event because of challenges with international tourism. And then perhaps also, this was maybe affected by the Netflix program Blown Away being canceled. That's, of course, just speculation. Organizers said that in the past has really helped to drive interest, especially last year. But as for the overall attendance over the 4 days, that number was unfortunately unavailable.
Okay. Do you think there's sort of some effort to keep those numbers sort of under wraps for some reason, or?
I think they just generally don't know. Aside from the opening night party, the weekend is really untethered. It's kind of like a build your own adventure book, and it's so sprawling, as I've said before, just geographically, and also in terms of content. And it's impossible to track down how many people are participating, where they're going over the weekend, and where they're coming from. And it's also impossible to tell who is actively seeking out Refract events versus, those who might be walking downtown and seeing a Refract sign in front of a venue and deciding to pop in spontaneously, and experiencing the event that way. So getting any data on all of that would take a ton of resources and planning from organizers that I think just isn't there right now and isn't a focus. But the artists and gallerists that I talked to did say that they had great flow of people throughout the weekend, which is great to hear, especially for those, doing demos and opening their studios. Because, all of these artists are actually, they're donating their time and their energy costs if they're doing a demo, in order to participate.
I can imagine that if it is well attended, you might have sales if you're a gallery or shop, or sign some people up for classes.
Yeah, that's definitely the hope. It's just spreading awareness in general, giving people a peek into this world and hoping that they're inspired enough to participate in some way, whether that is by, donating to places like Pratt, or buying a piece from an artist or a gallery, or just by simply telling their friends about the event and planning to return next year. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the glass community right now. No one really knows what the future of glass will be. And as the old guard of glass collectors are retiring, those that were the backbone of the Seattle glass art scene back in the day, we're all kind of wondering what is going to happen. The economy is in a very different place than it used to be. The way that the arts are finding funding has shifted as well. And I think a lot of people are hoping that Refract is able to harness some of that old excitement about glass while also showing the public how much glass has evolved and changed as an art form over the years.
Well, for those who want to learn more about Refract and to get some of your takeaways and analysis, I encourage you to subscribe, and we're going to give you a code to get a special deal in just a moment. But first, Ellie, can you give us a hint at how you see the sprawling and ever-expanding glass art festival known as Refract, what it might say about where glass is headed?
Totally. Yes. So, not to give away my whole conclusion in the article, but I will say that I think the event has been really reflective of where we are at in the glass world right now, in which, as I've somewhat alluded to already, are very uncertain times. Refract is anchored by these two big events, the kickoff party at Chihuly's and then the annual Pilchuck auction, both of which I would consider institutions in the community, and both of which are somewhat glamorous and splashy events. But what really fleshes everything out and gives the festival its color and positions the glass in context are the 70 or so other events, artists, demos, etc., happening across that 4-day weekend. You have all of these people working together, all these artists and gallerists, institution, nonprofit leaders, and all of that. So you have them all working together to uplift and support one another, showcase their own uniqueness and individual approach, and hopefully get some exposure to a wider audience, which is something that I think really can only happen in Seattle, that kind of group effort across such a broad area, at least to this effect. So by doing all of this, Refract is really mirroring this tradition, and Chihuly's and all of that with this innovation, these new artists coming up in the scene. And I think that is really reflective of what glass art is, because is it not just a blend of tradition and innovation?
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much to Ellie Sevier, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and for putting all those miles on your car on the hunt for the future of Seattle glass. We really are looking forward to your next article on the amazing Seattle glass art scene. And thank you once again for being on Glass Quarterly Live.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Ellie.
Glass blowing is a 2,000-year-old craft. "2,000 years. And there hasn't been anybody that's made a mark like Lino.
Lino has been pushing the glass limits for 70 years.
The level of articulation is as high as it's ever been because of him.
Yes, thank you.
He's like a father to all of us.
There will never be another leader.
I don't know any more glass blower.
Come on, Lino.
Glass Quarterly Live studio. Thank you so much, Jacob, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Jacob is the director, producer, and visionary behind a film called Sono Lino, which is a documentary about Lino Pietra, which has just been released for individual consumption. It has made the circuit of the documentary film festivals. Jacob, how has that film Sono Lino done on those circuits?
The festival circuit was great. I think, as always, is a little bit of a roller coaster, but it was received beautifully across the board. We were able to, win some awards, which is always really fun. And we played to like multiple sold out audiences, which is probably like the most endearing aspect of our festival run. We also had a couple other screenings, select screenings that were full of magic as well. But yeah, it was lovely.
To be clear, these were not screenings of the glass community. These were major film screenings, right? Like the Chelsea Film Festival, for example.
Yes.
So it wasn't a built-in audience. You were presenting this film to a wide audience of generalists, right?
Yeah. I guess there's always a little bit of nerves when it comes to like what could be considered a specialty doc when you're just screening to a standard audience, especially because at film festivals, you get a ton of people going to watch, 20, 30 movies in a week if they want. But the response was really incredible. I found a lot that there was this like really palpable feeling that folks had leaving the theater, where they're asking themselves about their own pursuits of art and craft and career, and kind of questioning, what the future could look like for them, considering Lino has this sort of like childlike energy about him, all the way into his 90s. I think it provides a real opportunity to reflect on what matters to you. So yeah.
Well, we spoke back when the film was first released, and one of the takeaways was that unlike a lot of films that are just filled with this sort of like beautiful photography, and there is plenty of beautiful photography, but this one goes beyond the glass shot and really talks about a study of a person. That's what really distinguishes this, film from the many others that have been done before it. It's a character study. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that funny enough was kind of the hot take that I presented the family with in the beginning. I really didn't. It's not that I don't care about his art. I think his art is incredible and awe-inspiring, but you can see his art wherever you want. Like, it's available in galleries and online. You can look at it. A litany of examples exist for the general public to see at any given time. After I met him, I've never felt so personally compelled, like, oh, I'm supposed to tell this person's story, as I was with Lino. I fell in love with him, as everybody does once you meet, because he's so charming. But that was always the pursuit. I was never setting out to make a film about glass. I was always setting out to make a film about Lino. And I think that just simply comes down to how blown away I have been by the people that surround him, how there are friends that have been a part of his life for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's just something about him that I genuinely feel like stories like his are supposed to be told.
And it's so interesting that by telling the story of him, you go through all of many people and in many interviews of those who know him best.
Yeah.
You have some of the big names in your interviews in this film. Maybe you could just run off like 4 or 5.
Sure. That's also part of kind of the magic of how this all came together. Everybody that we reached out to see if they'd be interested in giving us an interview was more than happy to do so. So Dante Marioni, obviously, him and Lino have known each other for decades and decades. He's one of the best in the game now. Dale Chihuly was kind enough to give us an interview. John Kiley, Nancy Callan, Dave Walters, and Jen Ellick. Those are like our main story mouthpieces. And then Ben Cobb, when we have our whole moment at Museum of Glass, Ben Cobb, who's the hot shop director there too, he came in, and he's known Lino for 20 years now as well. So
right.
It says something about the man that literally every single person or organization that we reached out to, if they wanted to be involved in any capacity, was more than happy to do so.
Well, this is a big day. I mean, we're speaking on December 19th, a few days before Christmas. And this is also the day when the film is now officially able to be viewed as an individual. Up until now, it's been film festivals and, public screenings where you had to buy a ticket.
Sure.
This is the first time you can actually own this film.
Yes.
In either Blu-ray or in streaming. And it's not the only thing that's distinguished about this particular day. It's also a release of an additional chapter in the film itself. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when we approached like how to ultimately distribute, because there's a million ways that you could do that. In the past, this bonus chapter has really come together in the past year. So this is definitely post the film being completed. Obviously, as the filmmaker, I've had like the itch I could do 10 bonus chapters. If Lino had the time, I could like branch off these, all these paths that we've learned a little bit about or like dipped our toe in along the way. I would love to like expound, but we talked to Lino about doing a bonus chapter, and this bonus chapter is solely his perspective. It is all through his voice about the importance and value of technique, and also the way in which he was received when he first came to the US, and how that affected and influenced how he formed into the artist he became. So it really is. I love it. I absolutely love it. There's a lot more like glass blowing focus. We let like a lot more of the tangible glass blowing moments play out, so you can see like how he's working along the way. But it is all his voice, which I love. I really love. But so yes, aspect. Sorry. That aspect of this release is exclusive to this release. So anybody who buys now gets the bonus chapter, whether it's on Blu-ray or on streaming.
So even for somebody who's seen the film in a festival or at a public screening, there's something different about what they can get through this special release to the public. So how does somebody get this? I mean, we are a few days from Christmas. I don't imagine a Blu-ray could be shipped, you know, in such record time. But perhaps there's a way you could actually get this through a streaming service that would be a gift, a way to give it to a friend, or even gift yourself for this. Yeah,
correct. So it's very simple. If you go to sonolino.com, it is all very evident. There's literally two options on the screen. You can either buy the streaming or you can buy the Blu-ray. Obviously, the Blu-ray probably won't ship till after the holidays, but it'll be a great, you know, collector's type piece that Technica will be a part of as well. But the streaming is immediate, and it's very simple. It's a simple one click. You can go through and purchase a copy. You have that copy available in your own library from that point forward. And for the gifting aspect of it all, funny enough, because it is day one, we're working out why the platform itself is not allowing for the gift. The gift option exists, but the process is somehow flubbing. But there's an easy workaround for that. If you want to buy it for someone else, you can literally just click buy and then put their email in as the recipient. And then it'll send straight off to them. They will be able to watch as well. So it's not super complicated to do so. We'll get it worked out, I promise. But yes, you can gift if you would like. It'd be a great gift.
Okay, so if you want to order it just today and you've seen this video and you want to get it right away to a friend, you actually fill out the whole order form, but instead of your own email address, put your friend's email address in the order form. They will get notified and they'll be able to set up an account and watch it.
Exactly.
No problem. Okay, excellent. And what is the price?
In the US, it's $9.99, $10.
Wow.
To stream.
What a deal.
And the Blu-ray price, the Blu-ray price is more. Blu-ray price is $25, but the streaming is only $10.
Great. And which of the awards would you say gives you the most pride? I know you've won several, but what is the one that really?
They all feel really different. And I think kind of the roller coaster that a festival circuit can feel like is part of that, like what the screenings felt like. Obviously, like taking best documentary at a festival was really big. That was at Chelsea, so that was kind of an incredible feeling. But the audience award that we got at Newport Beach Film Festival was super special because we were only one of, I think, 2 or 3 films that got 3 screenings at that festival, and we had 2 fully sold out screenings. And just the support of the festival was kind of incredible too. Like that experience was really amazing. Like you get assigned basically like a festival consigliere, to kind of guide you along. And she went so above and beyond because she loved the movie to like help fill theaters, and that was really, really incredible. But yeah, to win an award it's weird. It's weird and gratifying and like incredible all at the same time. It's a hard thing to describe, but what's great is the types of awards that we won throughout the circuit really did vary. Like what won an award for best cinematography for a documentary, which is lovely, and then an award for best first time feature director, which was it's obviously very, very endearing. But yeah, I can't not one over the other. But if I had to push, winning an audience award is really special. It's really, really special because it's tangibly the people that sat in the seats and were affected by the movie. Yeah,
I'm sure as a filmmaker too, to actually be able to witness and experience the reaction of the audience, and that must have been so precious as well. And I can see why that would really be especially effective. But now the audience is only set to expand with this new distribution. And go to sonolino, sonolino.com. And everything you need is there, either by the Blu-ray, by the streaming. And it's time to get a gift for Christmas if you go and enter the email address of your gift recipient instead of your own in the order form. So great. Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for joining us on Glass Quarterly Live. And good luck with the continued success of the Sonolino film experience.
Thank you so much. I actually want to say I am blown away by the support from the Glass community. So, folks like you, this means a lot, like getting a chance to talk about it, be enthusiastic about it. I know it means a lot to Lino too. And I get it. He's the greatest to ever do it. So there's a different feeling for him when it comes to accolade. But I must say the Glass community has been absolutely incredible throughout this whole process. So I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're grateful to have you as part of it. So, as somebody in the glass community, we're so glad you're joining our force here of glass appreciation and boosters of the glass world, which is so unique and full of amazing things, including obviously Lino's story and journey, which has inspired so many people in this field. Jacob, once again, thank you. Best wishes for the holidays, and thank you for joining us on
Thank you,
Glass
Andrew.
Quarterly Live. All
Happy
right.
holidays.
Take care.
See ya.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye. While we're on the subject of gifts, I'm very excited to share information about a holiday bundle available through Glass Quarterly Live. And I'm joined here by Sahana Ramakrishnan, the managing editor of Glass Quarterly magazine and an artist and printmaker. Sahana, how are you today?
Andrew, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you're going to tell us a little bit about a very special tote bag that brings together your two roles at the magazine. Please do. Please let us know what it is and how it involves the holidays.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about the holiday bundle while playing this video that shows the process of making parts of the holiday bundle. So this holiday bundle is a special bundle that's only available till January 1st, which has this printed, hand illustrated tote bag by me, along with all the 4 2025 issues of the magazine and a 1-year subscription of the magazine as well. So you'll be getting all the 2025 issues, all the 2026 issues, as well as this special tote bag that I illustrated and screen printed myself. As you had mentioned before, I was a printmaking minor in grad school and in my undergrad. In the process, I did a lot of screen printing for magazines, and so I'm well versed in the medium. So when coming into glass, I thought it'd be a really nice way to pay a homage to the decades of interesting visual design that the magazine has had, as well as interesting logos and patterns that the magazine has had. So this tote bag is a homage to that and is hand printed with a lot of love and care.
Wonderful. And how do people get a hold of it? If they're interested to order this, where do they go to find it?
If you would like to order it, you can go to urbanglass.org/store, and under the gift picks section of the store, you will see the holiday bundle. It is $75 only for both 2 years of the magazine along with this special limited edition tote bag. And yeah, sorry.
I think it's really significant that not only is it designed by you, it's also physically printed by you. So this is really an example of getting a very handmade project that is reflective of the magazine and actually literally flows from the offices of Glass Quarterly magazine, thanks to your many roles at the magazine. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I think that the wonderful thing about printing things in-house and just illustrating things in-house is the fact that we, as a team, know what the magazine is about. We know the history of the magazine. We understand the design of the magazine. So all the decisions at every stage of what type of tote bag do we want for it, where do we want it to be printed, what type of ink do we want for it, can all kind of come into play. And there is consideration of what the magazine is and the history of the magazine in it. So each and every part and each and every aspect of the bag is made taking into consideration what the magazine is about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sahana, for joining us briefly on this program and for doing this incredible tote bag. That's an homage to the history of glass. If you want a piece of Glass Quarterly, hand printed, hand designed, and based on the covers of this long history, please look into the holiday bundle at urbanglass.org/store.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sahana.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So I'm joined in Glass Quarterly Live with Dan Collins, who's the director of a wonderful documentary about Paul Stanker called Flower and Flame. And as part of our holiday gift guide, Dan is here to show us the trailer for Flower and Flame and also to tell us a bit more about the film. So Dan, welcome so much to Glass Quarterly Live. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So you've queued up the trailer for this film about Paul Stankert, who's the paperweight and glass encasement artist, botanical artist that has basically redefined the medium of the American botanical and created a whole world of collectors and appreciation and museum exhibitions for what he's done. Can you tell me a little bit about the film and then set up the trailer for us so that we can watch it?
Absolutely. And thanks again. This is a feature-length documentary about Paul and his life's work. It really covers his early childhood experiences growing up in nature and how that led to his desire to pursue excellence in the arts. It talks about his struggles with dyslexia as a child and how that taught him this perseverance that anyone who knows him knows that he has. He just kind of keeps going at things until he gets them the way that he wants them to be. And that has resulted in this remarkable career where his work is featured in museums all over the world. And if you've seen it, you know that it's just got a particular look to it, a particular magic to it, where the nature scenes that he captures in glass, they're referential and they're spiritual, and they look so real that some people really think there's flowers and bees in there. So the trailer kind of gives a very quick overview of the kinds of visuals you'll see in the film that I filmed in his studio, and some of these wonderful voices from the glass world who speak on his behalf, and of course the man himself, Paul, with all of his wit and wisdom.
Wonderful. Well, let's take a look. If you have it ready to go, we're all ears here to see it
thing.
as well as listen to it.
Here we go.
Excuse me, would you mind if I showed you something remarkable?
When I think back over my career, it was so important to me to invent a new language to interpret nature in a way that hadn't been interpreted before with framework glass. You know, I sometimes smile to myself knowing that I've been sitting behind a torch for 62 years, and I have as much interest and enthusiasm and hopes for the future today as I had the beginning of my career.
He transcended the paperweight world. The form, the scale is what most traditionally is a paperweight, but Paul takes it somewhere else completely. Some of them are just absolute treasures. I mean, they make people suspend their sense of reality. You look at it and you'll see a plant that you recognize and you go, how did that get in there?
His work for me evokes this childlike wonder. This idea of like a little world that you can hold in your hand that, you know, the closer you look at it, the more there is to uncover. It's undeniably exciting.
Paul just never stops improving. It's been rewarding to just watch him evolve. He did chase excellence and made it, I think, very clear that that was his standard.
He's someone that's being recognized worldwide for his art form. It's almost overwhelming that he could take this totally simple, flat little form and keep pushing it and making it three-dimensional and having at the same time this beauty of nature. It just becomes this almost miracle inside of glass.
I never call Paul a paperweight artist because it's just too limiting for him. His productivity and his boundless energy has given him the time to just get phenomenally skilled at what he does. And it's left him, I think, possibly ahead of anybody else.
I've been dedicated to the idea of interpreting nature in glass as a prayer in a way. My labor is my prayer. And I love that concept. So my prayer is that the excellence that I pursue will bring joy to people. You know, in a simple way, I want to do excellent work in order to respect God's beautiful creations.
And there we have it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that, Dan. It's really beautiful, and the music is quite probing and, yeah, really soulful. So appreciate that choice of sound as well. Is that music that's from the film as well as the trailer?
Absolutely. And I pay a lot of attention to music in my films. I'm a musician myself. It can really elevate a moment. It can make or break a moment sometimes. And actually, when I found that track, which I licensed from a composer through a service that I use sometimes to find cinematic music, I heard that and I was like, that's it. That's it. Just especially for the trailer. And when I cut the trailer for that, and I had just gotten some of that initial photography of Paul putting these elements together, and I shot it in a high frame rate for slow motion, tears came down my face. And I was like, at that time, I thought, this is really going to work, so.
Great. So your film has been recognized. It's received some awards and won some serious honor. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how's that film done out there on the film circuit?
Sure thing. First and foremost, we had so many community partners who screened the film over the first year that we released it. It came out, around this time, about 2 years ago. And we screened it at Corning and at the Morris Museum and Salem and Wheaton and all of these different organizations who really reached out and worked with us to get this to the audiences that really know and love glass, right? And then we started showing it at other community theaters to people who didn't know so much about glass. And as you know, that's always exciting when you see somebody like witness that for the first time and they come up to you afterwards and go, wait a minute, like, how do they do that? And so then we started hitting the festival circuit. We won a few Best Documentary awards. We screened at the Glass Art Society Film Festival in Berlin, along with Sono Lino, which I can't wait to see, actually, because I wasn't able to attend that event. And we won Best Documentary at the Jersey Shore Film Festival and played at a couple other screenings. But to take the cake, this September, we learned that we won a regional Emmy Award for the Mid-Atlantic National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. So getting an Emmy,
wow,
which I have right here, was like really an amazing honor. Mm-hmm. For me as a filmmaker, for Paul and Dave Graber, who put so much effort into the beautiful glass work. Mm-hmm. This film wouldn't have the impact that it has without the beauty that they brought into this this genre of glass, right? So I thank them for putting me in a position to tell a story like this that could have that kind of success.
And it's also been broadcast, if I'm not mistaken. It has been on public television. Is that right?
Yes, it's been broadcast and will continue to be broadcast for the next 2.5 years or so via NET in New York City, which is one of the biggest public television groups in the country. And so that covers all of Manhattan, most of New York State, and also New Jersey PBS, which was really important to us because, Paul spent his whole adult life in New Jersey. He considers himself a South Jersey artist, even though he was born in New England, as I was. And, he really considers himself to be someone carrying on that South Jersey glass tradition that goes back centuries. So to screen this and debut it on PBS in New Jersey, to win the Emmy because of that, because he got a broadcast on television to qualify, it was just like a dream come true for all of us. And, there's some photos I'll have to send you that if he already hasn't done it, of Paul when I brought the Emmy down to him, and he's holding it and, really excited. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
That's sort of what you dream about, I guess, when you make a film, to
Yeah.
bring somebody's story to life and to be recognized for the art that went into it is really, it must be such a gratifying feeling.
Absolutely.
If you don't live in these areas where it's being broadcast on public television and you want to see this film and you can't make it to one of these festivals or the festival circuit's over, one of the themes, we're doing last minute holiday ideas. And for the glass lover or the person who wants to know more about Paul Stankert or loves glass, how can they be shared in this experience of seeing this film in time for the holidays?
It can be streamed now on Amazon and also on Vimeo on demand. So the easiest way to do that is to go directly to our website, which is flowerandflamefilm.com. And right on the homepage, immediately, you'll see us going, check out the movie. So there are direct links there. You can rent the film for a couple $. You can buy it for under 10. And then you'll have a digital copy. There are no physical discs, just to be clear. It's all streaming for several different reasons. But it's a great gift to share with people who may be interested in glass. Maybe they know about glass, but they don't know a lot about Paul, or people who've just never experienced the magic of glass. So if you've got some time coming up over the holidays, we highly recommend you get this film, share it with your friends and family, sit around on a snowy evening or a sunny one if you're out in California or something like that, and just share this with people. We've shared it with audiences all over the country, and, people have been really moved by the beauty of the work, the music, and the spiritual sort of honesty that Paul brings to the story that he tells. I mean, he really laid it all bare for me. He really trusted me with, his inner life story and some of his most challenging moments, and it's a very real portrait of an artist. So we hope people share it.
I'll tell you also, I mean, in addition to those who might be interested in glass, I do know from following Paul's career for a long time, I've seen his, show at the Museum of Arts and Design. I've seen him over many different exhibitions. People are drawn to his work, not only for the glass, but for the depiction of botanical nature. I mean, it's got such an appeal for people who might never have thought about glass, but love the world of plants, and they're fascinated by botany. These people are fascinated by this work as well, and I would suggest that even a wider group of people find that appealing than the glass world, which is itself quite large. But if you have a child studying botany in college who's coming home for the holidays, or somebody studying glass blowing, of course, this would seem like a perfect way to get the family together and watch the show on Amazon or Vimeo, which I imagine you can also search it up on Amazon. Is it also something that you could just find if you're on Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. You can just Google Paul J. Stankert Flower and Flame, and it comes up.
Or if you're on Amazon.
Yep. To your point, I just wanted to mention one other thing, which is that I know a lot of artists who have watched this film who are not glass artists, who are musicians or writers who have really identified with the struggle of what it takes to persevere in that environment too. So to your point, you don't have to be a glassblower to love this movie. It's really about the human spirit and how do you pursue your passion and also figure out how to make a living doing it, which is a challenge.
Yeah. I wanted to say one last note about the photography, which is you are the cinematographer as well as the director. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the cameraman and everything. Did you invest in specific lenses to get that kind of incredible close up? Some of those shots are breathtaking. And what does it take to get those shots?
Sure. And thank you. And I did have some assistance from some other photographers who I should mention, Josh Skolnick out of Chicago, who did some of those awesome tracking shots of the earlier work, and also the photography of Jeff DeMarco for some of the still photos. But most of it I shot myself, and I had some lenses that I'd been building in my collection. I've been making documentaries for 20 plus years now, but I did invest in some equipment, specifically a slider and a macro lens, which basically allows you to get really close up shots at a full pixel depth. So if you're not a camera nerd, it basically means like you can zoom in on something, but you lose a little something. Whereas a macro lens really captures the depth of the the intricacies of what you're filming. So I would use this slider to just pan across his works and even his workbench, like in the director's cut, which is the one you'll see on Vimeo and Amazon, as opposed to public television, which is a little shorter. In the director's cut, it opens with all these panning shots of Paul's workbench. It's like his gloves and some of his tools and these things that almost look like, like lunar landscapes of of the studio. And I really enjoyed creating that opening sequence because I wanted people to kind of feel what it's like to sit at his bench. And just a funny anecdote, I mean, Paul himself was like, Danny, why are you showing pictures of my gloves? Like, get to the glass, And I said, trust me on this, Paul. I'm going to capture and create a mood here using these tools. So I very much sought out the tools and some special lights to try to make that happen. So it seems like it worked.
Yeah, it really captures the textures and the layers. And on that note, I mean, with that macro lens, it seems like it's every Paul Stankert collector's dream to actually be able to like journey inside the glass. Because in some of those shots, you wonder, like, am I actually somehow inside the encasement that Paul has created because they're so close up? So thank you so much, Dan, for the gift of your incredible film about Paul called Flame and Flower and Flame, excuse me. And thank you so much for sharing your thoughts about your incredible film, Flame and Flower. Sorry, we can do this little quick edit later. Got to just get the lights to go on. Sorry, there's so many technical challenges in this setup here.
Welcome to my world.
Yes, but luckily the power of editing will solve them all.
That's right.
Including the fact that the light goes out every 20 minutes or something on motion detect. So thank you so much, Dan, for joining us this morning to talk about, well, I have to say one more time. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us this afternoon and sharing this wonderful film, Flower and Flame, which is such an homage, not just to Paul Stankert, but to glass, to nature, and to the business of art and the life of an artist. So we really appreciate you taking the time today to join us and sharing this wonderful work that you've made.
Thank you, Andrew. It's my pleasure. And thank you for all the work that you do to elevate the glass world and to introduce it to new audiences. I can't say enough about what you've done for this community.
Well, thank you so much and have a wonderful holiday. Best wishes for the holidays.
Happy holidays to all. Take care.
All right. Take care, Dan.